So this last Sunday was the last day of the farmers market here for the season, and I loved this sign because it reminded me of why I love farmers markets. Because farmers markets are about ingredients, and ingredients hold so much promise. So I have kind of a philosophy about ingredients, and it's really simple. Good in, good out. If everything that I'm cooking with is something that is of good quality and something I enjoy and something that's good for me, I'm probably going to like whatever I'm cooking out of it. Good in, good out. So in my non-farmers market hobby life, I actually lead a very digitally connected life. I work for a technology company, and there's 80 of us spread all over the country, and we connect almost exclusively online all day, every day. And in my personal life, this has spilled over too. I get pretty excited about the latest and greatest social network, and I am a consumer, like many of us are, of Facebook and Pinterest and all of the other social networks out there. But earlier this year, something started to not feel right about the time and the energy I was spending in social media and in social networks. And so I kind of dug into it a little bit to see what was going on, and found that it was starting to feel like junk food. And there were a few things about it. First of all, it kind of felt like empty calories. I was spending a lot of time in these social networking sites and yet not really feeling any more connected to people than when I'd begun, and that didn't feel right. It also felt like there was a portion control problem. I was consuming a lot of social media, morning, noon, night, tablet, phone, laptop. It was a lot. And that didn't feel right either. It also felt like there was a serious lack of variety because I realized that I never accepted new friend requests on Facebook or with anyone, because when you connect to somebody online, connecting to somebody I didn't know felt terrible, because when you connect to somebody online, you're connecting to all of them all at once. It's a little bit like walking into a cocktail party and handing somebody 200 pictures of yourself and informing them of your entire dating relationships and your history and your political views and everything else. We wouldn't do that in real life, and so it feels pretty strange to just accept the request of somebody that you don't know online too. But on the other hand, when you don't meet anybody new, and there's a lack of variety. I also felt like I couldn't quite understand the label. More and more, the privacy policies and the policies about what was being advertised to me and the policies about what was going to be posted to where and to whom started to feel really confusing, like multisyllabic ingredient lists that I couldn't pronounce, much less understand. And finally, and the thing that really got me, was that it was starting to feel kind of addictive. It felt like it should come with a warning sign. And I felt like there was something that was just wrong with it. So, because when you're 8.5 months pregnant, it's a really, really good time to make a sweeping life decision, I decided to take a 12-week break from social media and decided that that would coincide nicely with the birth of my third child. So before I did that, I decided to do what any good dietitian will tell you to do when you're about to lose weight or go on an exercise program, which is to make a journal of all that you consume. So I did, and I took it one geeky step further and mapped it out. And here's how I did it. I drew a line down the middle, and I said, everything on the left of the line is going to be a direct, active human interaction, and everything on the right of the line are going to be the interactions that I'm consuming a bit more passively. And we're going to start at the top of the day, right when I wake up, at the top of the map here, and go to when I go to sleep at night, and take a look at all of my interactions in between. So here's how it went. This is June 20th, a regular work day, a regular weekday, a day that I was on social media, and here we go. This is like stepping on the scale in front of all of you. So that day I had 12 actual human in-person interactions with my husband, my kids, their teachers, and so on. I had 9 phone calls, or video conferences in some cases. I sent or received 7 text messages, which I was rather proud of as a reasonably low number. I also sent or received 120 emails, 168 Facebook post, 22 tweets, 68 pins on Pinterest, and 640 instant messages across the airwaves. That day, I consumed more than 1,100 pieces of content. I let more than 220 people and 30 companies into my life that day. It was an obesity of information. So it was with no qualms whatsoever that on July 4th, Independence Day, I took all of the apps off of my phone. I deleted them all. I reveled in the idea of a disconnected 12 weeks. I had a 5-day-old son, and I thought, this is going to be great. And I did it, and I turned them off, and I was a little bit smug about how disconnected I was. And then on July 5th, my little train jumped the tracks and I totally derailed completely. I expected to miss social media. I did not expect to crave social media again. Excuse me. I expected to feel a little disconnected. I did not expect to feel so completely disconcerted by the idea that my social media presence was out there and I wasn't attending it. And more than anything else, the absolute automatic nature with which I was constantly going to my phone, unlocking it, and looking for social media icons that were not there was really, really troubling to me. I didn't know how this habit had formed or what had happened. So I went in and started to do a little bit of research about how we form habits and what happens in our brains when we encounter a quick hit of anything, from French fries to Facebook. So it turns out the science behind habits is actually pretty straightforward. It's pretty good. There's a cue. Our brains make a response to that cue and create a routine. And then we have a reward in reaction to that routine, and together that creates a feedback loop that creates a habit. So you come home from work, and you see a bag of chips, and that's your cue, and you say, oh, I'm hungry, I've had a long day. And the routine is you grab the bag of chips and you eat it, and there's a reward of that full and satisfied feeling. And over time, you keep doing that every day and every day. And suddenly, you don't need to see the bag of chips anymore. Suddenly, your brain starts anticipating that full and satisfied reward, and a craving is born, and a habit is born. And suddenly, you're grabbing a bag of chips super easily and without even thinking about it, and maybe without even being hungry. So the same science that tells us about how habits are formed tells us about how habits are changed, which is to say, to break a habit, the best way is actually not to break the habit, but to just change the routine in the middle. Keep the cue, keep the reward, change the middle. So rather than giving up all of your after-work snacking, you change the routine in the middle from chips to carrots, and over time and with repetition, the craving changes too. So once I understood this, it was a lot easier to understand where my own craving and habit came from. So for me, the cue was my phone. When I first had my smartphone, it gave me little notifications every time there was something happening on Facebook or Twitter or any of those places, and something would buzz or light up or show on the screen, and I would unlock it, click it, check it, and there was a reward for that. There was that satisfied little quick hit of interaction, information, and I loved it. And over time, I didn't need that notification on my phone anymore. In fact, I didn't even need to see my phone. I just needed to know that it was there. And over, I would click and check it, and click and check it. And once I realized this in this experiment, I realized that this is not going to be a social media vacation. This was going to be a hard-won rewiring of my own habits of personal interaction. So here I was, really, really bloated with social media, and the change happened obviously really quickly. Once I went off of social media, there was, a really, really clear difference. This is just a few days after I went off of social media and was off of work. And the interactions were obviously so much less and yet they also lengthened out in time and in duration and in depth. I decided that in order to rewire that feedback loop, in order to have that new routine, I needed to know what that routine, what a healthy interaction routine would look like for me if it wasn't going to include, 1,100 social media posts. So what I decided was that for me it needed to be 3 things in order for my new routine to be really healthy. It needed to be substantive, it needed to be lasting and have opportunities to create lasting assets of that interaction, and it needed to have the opportunity for natural growth. So this was just a few days after. And this is when I went back to work, but hadn't gone yet back to social media. So one of the things that I loved about how I learned these new routines is that things started to shift to the left, towards the more active and mindful interactions, and less towards the passive and consuming interactions. And that was really exciting to see. And even when I went back to social media, the overall shape was decreased. That definitely happened. But so too was the top and the bottom of this. And that was important to me. It was morning and night when I was with my husband and my children and my family. I wanted that time to have less online interaction, and it does. It tapers towards a few more substantive relationships. So I was really apprehensive going back to social media. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I wasn't sure if all of my good hard work of establishing these healthy routines was going to be gone after this, and I didn't know what to do. But as it turns out, this is what I learned, that these ingredients of interaction that come through these new things of social media can actually have a lot of really healthy aspects, things that I craved and wanted: substance, long-lasting and permanent, and natural and organic relationships could happen here. So it turns out, if you actually go to the article that people share on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, it will take you to something that you can actually read, not just bookmark for later. And if you actually read it, you will find some substance and some learning in that experience. There's also really amazing opportunities for permanence and lasting assets of your interactions from places like Instagram and Pinterest, where you can print pictures and have wonderful assets of your interactions. But you have to think about it, and you have to be mindful of it, and you have to do it, not just think about doing it. And a place like Facebook and Google Plus and Goodreads actually will lead you to real live discussion groups and book clubs and opportunities to meet new, real, live human people. But again, you have to let it and be mindful. It was comforting to me to know that we didn't have an enemy in social media. I just had a new set of ingredients that I needed to learn how to use better. So I think that in the coming years, we're going to find social media and the way that we consume it to be really similar to the way that we think about other things that we used to think were revolutionary and healthy and exciting, and now we know we might want to consume in a little bit more moderation. A box of mac and cheese, a can of soda, a stick of tobacco. Social media holds the remarkable ingredients of communication and connection and learning, but they're right alongside some not so healthy ones, like isolation and apathy and addiction. It's our job and our responsibility, and frankly, our opportunity to find the ways to use these ingredients for healthy human interaction. That was one of the main things that I learned. The other thing that I learned was just about what this could be for my children and for my family. So I got the best indicator of the lesson I learned about a month and a half ago, when my 6-year-old daughter shoplifted a pack of gum from a gas station, thereby undermining all of my parenting abilities whatsoever. After trying to communicate and interact with her to explain to her the gravity of this situation, the wrongness of lying, how bad this really was, I was not getting through at all. And so I pulled the only card I had, and I threatened to take away her birthday party as punishment. And she asked me for a pen and paper. And I said, okay, and I gave it to her, and we had been talking about writing letters and writing more letters. And I thought she went to write me a heartfelt apology about how wrong she had been. And this is what she came back with instead. And if you haven't read 5-year-old writing lately, I'll read it to you. Oh, it says, hold on, try again. It says, I am very mad. I do not want you to take away my birthday. Besides, it's my birthday. So we had a conversation about how that wasn't quite the right human interaction here. But what it reminded me more than anything else in the world was what I had really learned in this experiment. That human interaction is a learned and nurtured skill. That she doesn't come into this world knowing how to interact with humans any more than we come into this world knowing which ingredients are the healthy ones for us or how to prepare them. It's my job as her mom to teach her that, no matter what connection and communication devices and apps and everything are in her life going forward. It's my job to teach her to embrace the news of the world and not just receive it, to express herself in as many characters as she might need, to talk about the things that matter to her and not just what her friends or followers might find relevant, and to invest in relationships and not just scroll through them. Good in, good out. Thank you.